And good morning. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Reverend Bill Roscoe joining us from the Boise Rescue Mission. Tell me, how was the Christmas season?
Well, Kevin, I just got to say, once again, this is the most generous community on the face of the earth. We had a wonderful holiday season at the Rescue Mission. We saw literally thousands of people coming to the two Christmas and two Thanksgiving events. Gave away thousands of turkeys and food boxes, thousands of toys and gifts for children to needy families who came by. And all of it because the people of the Valley, the people of this community, your listeners, are so generous and so concerned about one another. And that's what I just love about this Valley, that people really care about one another, and they care in tangible ways. They don't just say they care. They prove that they care by sharing and giving and volunteering. So we've had a great, great, great holiday season. I'm all excited for the new year.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Boise Rescue Mission for people that aren't familiar with this area and what it's about. Maybe they're new here. Tell us a little bit about the Boise Rescue Mission.
Well, Kevin, as you know, we just celebrated our 60th anniversary in October of 18. 60 years of continuous ministry here in the Treasure Valley, starting very humbly over on Capitol Boulevard with a small 16-bed facility that wasn't even really open for shelter for the first couple of years because they just couldn't afford to have staff and the necessities. So it was a soup kitchen and a gospel station where volunteer pastors and preachers from the community came and preached the gospel in the evening and gave the fellas, mostly all fellas, men in those days, a bowl of soup and a slice of bread, and wished them well and sent them on their way. And, of course, over the years, we've had change, and a lot of change in the last 16 years since I've been here. We've opened two new facilities in Nampa. We had a lighthouse mission there when I got here, but we bought and remodeled a building on 16th Avenue and moved out of the old building on Caldwell Boulevard. And then we bought the former Valley Crisis Center, which was a women and children shelter for domestic violence victims, and we converted that to a regular Rescue Mission women and children shelter, open 24/7 and serving the ladies and kids up there in the West Valley. Moved our operations center into a warehouse on 24th Street with 3,000 feet of commercial space. Great news there, Kevin. We just installed a beautiful, huge diesel-powered generator, electrical generator. So if we should experience long power outages here in Boise, that generator kicks on automatically and will keep our freezer and refrigerators all going and keep our food safe. And, of course, it's also the brain trust of the mission with all the servers and all the computer components in there. So that's a huge accomplishment for us to have that backup generator. But anyway, we're serving today about 1,000 meals a day every single day. And we see anywhere from 400 to 500 men, women, and children in shelter every night. I just got a count the other day, and City Light had 124 women and children in shelter. And at the same time, we had 60 women and children in shelter over at the Valley Shelter in Nampa. And it's not unusual at all to have more children in those beds than adults at the Women and Children's Centers. And so we're just really pleased that the community makes it able to happen for us, helps us to be open, be available, and serve all those needy people. Veterans programs are doing great. We continue to see huge success in transitioning people, veterans from the street, the hospital, through our transitional living program and back out into the community. 85-90% of those men and women who go through our program do not return to homelessness, which is a remarkable statistic. And as you know, Kevin, overall, over the last 6 years now, we have seen over 500 people come into the rescue mission as homeless people and go out of the rescue mission to live in their own places again, living independently. And that's a wonderful and significant outcome for those people and for the whole community. Because if you can imagine, 6 times 5 is 30. That's 3,000 people who were on the street and might, in fact, still be on the street had they not come through the doors of the mission and found the many, many programs and services that we have available to help them overcome homelessness.
Reverend Bill joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's go back to people that are homeless. Many people see the people with the signs and all that sort of thing. They may give money. What are your thoughts on that when you see people outside of a Winco or an Albertsons?
Kevin, that's a very touchy issue, because I understand compassion. I consider myself a compassionate man, and I have compassion on people. And when I see folks standing out there, and especially now in the inclement weather, and they're holding a sign and they're hungry and homeless and all the rest, it moves me. But, I've got 26 years. This is my 27th year of rescue mission work. And I've known so many people who, as we affectionately say, fly the sign, proclaiming they're homeless and needing a meal, needing a place to stay, when in fact they have a place to stay. And this panhandling, as you call it, is their way of getting some extra cash, or maybe the cash that they need and get for living. And, in other words, it's their job. And there are a lot of fraudulent people out there on the corner flying a sign, folks, and I know no one wants to think that, and some people think ill of me for saying that, but I can tell you it's the truth, because I know a lot of the folks that do that, and some of them, in fact, stay with us. And, of course, if we encourage our guests not to do that, and we warn our guests that should they be out flying the sign and one of us sees them, we're going to challenge them about that. And they'll get one warning, but if they do it again, they'll be losing their place to sleep at the rescue mission, because we're not going to perpetuate a fraud on the community. To take those dollars that might otherwise go to a good, legitimate nonprofit agency that really does help people, and giving those dollars to someone who's going to use them for their own purposes. And by the way, those purposes might not be what you would hope. In other words, hungry, need help, please give, and you hand them your $5 bill, and instead of buying a Burger King lunch, they go over to the package store and get themselves a bottle of wine and a pack of cigarettes and go home. That happens. I'm sorry to say that, and if I'm offending people, I'm sorry for that too, but it's the truth. You're much, much better off to give those $5 bills to one of the legitimate agencies in this valley that are helping people, and there's a lot of us doing that out here, and we all need the financial help. So I encourage people, give your money to the Salvation Army, the Food Bank, the Rescue Mission, Boys and Girls Club, Catholic Charities, St. Vincent de Paul. There's a lot of good agencies here doing a lot of good for people, and all of us need help. So make your investment count when you give that money away. And as I've always said, when people come to the rescue mission, they're getting more than spare change. They're going to get real change.
Well, that would seem to be easier said than done. And let's focus a little here at KIDO Talk Radio with Reverend Bill from the Boise Rescue Mission, BoiseRM.org. How do you rebuild somebody?
Well,
when they come to your place with absolutely nothing.
Kevin, that's a good question and a tough job. And so let me say that in our case, in the case of the Boise Rescue Mission, the first thing we're doing every single day is we're praying for the people who come through our doors, because we realize, and I know personally, that the power of God is really what makes a change happen in people. It changed me when I became a Christian. My whole life changed. My whole world changed. So we start by praying for people, and then when they come to us, we try to immediately let them know very clearly, we care about you. How can we help you? What are your issues? What brought you through our doors? And how can we help you to recover from homelessness? We really start right from the beginning of our relationship with people to talk about the need for change and make sure they understand they need change, because some people coming into our place really don't think they do need change. They're fairly satisfied in living the way that they're living, and in some cases they think this is the best I could ever do. So we offer them the options that we have, the programs and the services that we have, and help people to see that, yes, indeed, you can live a better life. You can indeed have your own place to live. You can, if you're willing and able, you can get a job. You can hold a job. We can help you. You can get your GED. You can get help with your untreated mental illness. Your children can get the counseling and the care that they need. and the consistency, the love that they need to excel in school. And we put all of that on the table and say, look, let us help you, and we can and we will. And if they choose to do that, then we start that process. But it takes a lot of energy on their part as well as on the part of the rescue mission team.
Reverend Bill joining us, Reverend Bill Roscoe with the Boise Rescue Mission. Kevin Miller in the morning on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. You know, we just had the season of giving. How tough is it going to be for you coming up the next few months?
It's going to be interesting, Kevin. It always is. You know, the early spring, the late winter, early spring are very, very tough times for raising money. It's historic, it's traditional, and any nonprofit agency will say the same thing, that it's people have given a lot through the holiday, and they feel really good about that. And, you know, they're all moving on with starting a new year and doing whatever they're doing, and thinking about giving isn't quite as paramount as it is during the holiday season. And, of course, we're taking on this new project up in Nampa, where we're opening up a whole new facility to help people who are coming out of the hospital, homeless people who are coming out of the hospital that need a little time in a smaller, quieter venue, a shelter, in order to have that recovery happen that they need based on their surgery or their illness, whatever put them in the hospital in the first place. So we have a whole new budget category for the Recovery Lodge, and that's going to be challenging to raise that extra money. But again, we're confident that it's something that needs to happen. We've got help from St. Luke's and St. L's on that project, some good help, but we still need to raise a lot of extra money, a lot more money this year than we did last year. And I'm hoping that people will catch that vision with us. And when they hear the stories that we have about homeless people who've come out of the hospital, mothers with children who needed open heart surgery, were homeless, had nowhere to go, no family support.
Wait a minute. Mothers with children that needed open heart surgery and they had no homes?
That was the case that pushed us over the edge, so to speak, Kevin, to compel us to do our best to open up the Recovery Lodge. We have a young woman who gave birth to a little boy in one of the local hospitals here, and she happens to be a convicted felon, although she had been clean and sober for a short period of time before the baby was born. She hadn't been in any trouble with the law in a while. Anyway, she had a baby boy who needed immediately heart surgery, but he couldn't get the surgery for several days after he was born, and I think part of it was to see if he lived the first few days, and then he did. But it was time for them to go to what you and I would consider outpatient care from the hospital until they could go to Seattle for the scheduled surgery. Well, outpatient in her case, and in a lot of cases with homeless people, is outpatient.
Let's get back to that in a minute, because I do want to focus in on that and the need to have this facility here in the Treasure Valley. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller with the Reverend Bill Roscoe of the Boise Rescue Mission. And here we have it, Reverend Bill. You have people that have been going through a traumatic surgery, and all of a sudden they have no home to go home to. So we're talking about a young child. Is it an infant, or how old?
Well, he was born, he's now 20 months old, so this story started 20 months ago. But he was born here in town, and his mom was homeless, and when it came time to leave the hospital, they had nowhere to go. And this little baby was critically sick. He needed heart surgery, open heart surgery, and he had other issues, but the heart surgery was the big deal. And because she was a felon, some of the regular places where someone might go, a woman like her and a baby might go, weren't open to her because of her felony conviction. Fortunately, she got on the phone and she found us and called, and we were able to take them right in. Immediately, we got him a motel room because the baby had to have an absolutely spotless, clean place to stay, and he couldn't be around other people because if he so much as got a cold, he would probably die. So we put them in a motel for a day or two, and we had an apartment open in our transitional apartments in Boise for women and kids. We sent a crew of our program ladies in there with a bunch of bleach and cleaner, and they scrubbed it top to bottom. And we moved Henry and his mom into that apartment, and then we served them there for the first 15 or 16 months of his life. Kept him in that apartment and transported her up and down to Seattle for the surgeries that Henry needed. held her hand through that process, and all the while her faith in God grew and prospered. Henry went through those terrible surgeries and recovered. And as I said a minute ago, he's 20 months old right now and doing very well, and they do have their own place to live. Remarkable.
Amazing. So based on this experience, it put you over the edge, and now all of a sudden you're committed to building a new facility.
Recovery Lodge. Yeah, this was the case that pushed us into saying we've got to do something better than what we're doing, because we've served people coming from the hospital in the taxi cab, dropped off at the mission, and that's their outpatient plan, is to be at the rescue mission. And just imagine, that's one case, Henry and his mom, but imagine the old fellow, a guy my age, for example, over 65 years old, who just had major surgery and has to rest and have bed rest and can't move around well, needs a quiet place to get a lot of sleep, and he's in a 125-bed dorm at the River of Life. It's not an optimal situation. The lady we received at City Light last year, who showed up in the cab from the hospital, who had the clothes on her back, a broken arm that had been set, and she's legally blind. So here you have this poor woman, homeless, trying to maneuver her way through a 98-bed dormitory over at City Light Home for Women and Children. Tough cases, Kevin, heart-wrenching cases. And while we served people in those situations that way, and most of them did okay, there were some that we couldn't keep. We just couldn't have them in our shelter. It just, the risk of infection, for example, the risk of catching the flu or a cough could have just totally derailed the recovery. So they really needed a better, quieter, safer place than a 120-bed or a 98-bed dorm, and we just don't have that until now. So as we're working hard to get that place open, I hope other people who are hearing this and are concerned about people like that would be interested to help us and give us a holler and help us out with a donation or perhaps some volunteer services.
KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. Back with Reverend Bill, Kevin Miller in the morning here. So, Reverend Bill, you need money?
We need money, Kevin, and the fact is we need a lot of money, but I want to make sure people understand that we don't take any government funds whatsoever. All the services of the rescue mission, all the facilities, all the staff, it's all paid for through the contributions of the generous people of this community. And so we do need people to give. And I mean, if you can give $5 a month, then please give $5 a month. And if you can give more than that, wonderful. Please do, because we really need the help. And every gift matters. A lot of people look at us and say, well, they're so big and they've got all this facilities and staff. They're doing all these things. They serve 1,000 meals a day. My $5 doesn't make any difference. I want to tell you, your $5 makes a big difference. And God knows what we need every single day. And I'm convinced beyond a doubt, after all these years, Kevin, that every single day God brings in what we need. But people have to hear and answer the call from God and now from me. Please help us. Please give, because we need financial support. We also need volunteers. And I like to say, if you have a gift or a talent or a skill and you want a place to share it, I'm sure that the Rescue Mission has a place for you. And you can do everything from shredding sensitive papers in one of our administrative offices, to driving a van, to serving meals, to cooking meals, to teaching a recovery class, teaching in academics, mentoring adults and children, veterans. You name it, we can fix you up with a place to do it. So please, folks, don't hesitate. Give a call. Go to boiserm.org and have a look at our volunteer page, and you'll see the opportunities that are there, and then take advantage of those as you're able.
Sure, but getting back to the call for funds for this new facility.
Well, we need to raise quite a bit of money, Kevin. The facility was a really, really good buy. The fellow who owned it decided to sell. It was a 15-room assisted living facility in Nampa, and it's right next door. I mean, we share a property line with our women and children shelter, so it's a perfect location for us in terms of infrastructure and having staffing and all of that readily available. But we did pay $700,000 for the building, and a little more than that. We did some renovations on it, just finishing that up right now, and looking forward to an opening of that facility soon. but we really need to have some operations cash in the bank before we take people in the door, because the worst thing you can do is open up something like this and then be forced, because of finances, to shut it down. So we do need people who are interested to make a gift. Please do that, and do that soon. If you want to make a monthly gift, we can set that up with you, and you can give a monthly gift towards that specific project. And that's how we're going to get this thing open and start serving those people that really need this service.
Well, like I said, when you think about just any amount of money can make a difference.
Absolutely. And, you know, the more the better. That's how I always look at it.
Is that really how you look at it, huh?
No, truly, everything helps. And, you know, I meet donors all the time, Kevin, who live on Social Security, fixed incomes, and they're faithful with their $15, $20, $25 a month pledge. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And then we have other friends, and you know some of those same friends here at KIDO, who have the means to make a large gift on an annual basis, and they're so generous to do that and help us with a huge gift. But really and truly, we work hard to take good care of the money that's given to us. We try our best to be good stewards. We're not extravagant, I don't think, in any of our operations or our staffing. We've got some wonderful, talented people who work for us that almost all of them would easily make more money working in the private sector. However, they're called by God to serve people, and they want to serve people at the rescue mission. And so we have talent that we really couldn't afford, but we can afford them because they're willing to come and serve at the mission in a way to serve people and to serve God. So folks can look at our 990 online. We publish that on our website. They can see our audited financial statements online, on our website, boiserm.org. You can call up and have a tour of any or all of our facilities. We'll show you the buildings. We're proud of how our staff keeps our facilities clean and functional, healthy and safe. And, we think we have a good product. And people need to remember this, too, Kevin. For every $17 that is spent on incarcerating a person or serving a person through welfare systems and things like that, it's $1 at the rescue mission, or it's $1 in the nonprofit world. $1 in the nonprofit world saves $17 of taxpayer money in the community services. So we hope people will take advantage of the opportunity to partner with us and give.
More coming up next. You're listening to Kevin Miller with Reverend Bill, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And he always brings a smile to our face, the Reverend Bill Roscoe of the Boise Rescue Mission, talking about making a difference in our community. You know, we've known each other for years, and we've been through recessions and the Fed going up, the Fed going down. What do you make of all the people coming to the Treasure Valley? Has that hit you at all?
Yeah, it has, Kevin. And you know, the growth in the Treasure Valley is good news and bad news, no matter how you look at it. Just drive like I do. I live in Caldwell, and I commute down here, and you drive that commute in the morning and evening, and you're thinking, please, God, no more people to the valley. And then on the other hand, if you're a small business owner and you've got so much work that you had to hire 4 more people and buy 2 more trucks, you're saying, yes, Lord, more people to the Treasure Valley. And the real estate market's booming and people are doing well. So it's a good thing. On the other hand, a lot of people come here and any place like this because they think this is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You know, they've been living over in Portland or somewhere else, and they see Boise and the growth, and they think, I'm going to go there, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a good living, and things are going to be great. And they get here, and it doesn't quite work out that way. Some of those people will end up with us. And then you have folks who come here because they think that the same thinking, but it's that, as we call it as recovering people, magical thinking. Well, I'm going to move to Boise, and all my problems will go away, everything will be fine, and I'll live happy ever after. But, magical thinking is just that. It isn't real. And people come here with problems. Those problems are still there, and sometimes they get worse. And again, some of those people will end up with us. You have a lot of people in and out of jail. I'm glad to see the Justice Reform Act happening. I'm glad that there's going to be more consideration in regard to how we sentence people and why we sentence people to jail and prison. But when people get out of jail, they need a hand. They need a hand up. And a lot of those people come to the rescue mission because we have a proven record of being able to help them with their immediate needs of shelter and food and all the rest, but also to help them to get their GED, to get them back into the job market through our job search program, and help them to get their feet back underneath them and back into the community in a successful way. So the growth is a good thing. We're hoping to find new donors and supporters for the mission and raise all that money that we need on the one hand. And on the other hand, we'll probably need to raise more money down the road because we'll have more people coming for services.
Right. That is the challenging part when you think about all these people coming here. And then you have the mission's goal when it comes to helping people recover from the drugs. And before we get to that, though, what about the victims of domestic violence?
We serve a lot of domestic violence victims, as you know, Kevin, and our shelters on any given day, women and children's shelters, you're going to find a large percentage of the population there are victims of domestic violence. At one time at City Light, 100% of the women in our recovery program were all victims of domestic violence at some point in their lives. And we see men who are victims of domestic violence as well. So it's a huge problem. It's a problem across our country. And, of course, drugs and alcohol has something to do with that, too, as does mental illness, untreated mental illness. There's a lot of reasons for domestic violence, and it's a tough issue for women particularly, I think, especially with children, because the kids are going to suffer from that violence just as surely as the victim herself does. In other words, the children are victims too. And so we have programs designed and partnerships established with people who work with those folks in that population, and we can help them to recover from domestic violence just as sure as we can help them to recover from alcohol or substance abuse too.
Before we get to that, though, how significant is the domestic violence, the sexual trafficking here in the Treasure Valley? It doesn't really get reported that much as it should, or does it?
No, it doesn't, and part of the reason for that is because it's hard. It's really hard, Kevin, for law enforcement to help the victims of domestic violence, the victims of human trafficking, sex trafficking. And as a matter of fact, this valley, this community is a hub for sex trafficking. And I've known a few ladies who have been in our program who were the victims of this terrible, terrible crime. And it's hard for law enforcement because, in the first place, the ladies are likely to be arrested for prostitution. And in many cases, as they're arrested for prostitution, they're going to be in possession of a controlled substance. And so they are the criminal at the point of contact with law enforcement. But at the same time, in many cases, law enforcement can tell or discover soon that these same criminals are actually victims. And in the case of a lady who I know who was 17 years old when she was taken in by a fella who ended up putting her into this terrible, terrible situation, she just wants to get out of jail. He's going to get her out of jail, and does, and then they pack up everything and they move to Pocatello. And the same thing happens to her there. And then they move down to Salt Lake City, and the same thing happens. And they move over to...
And this is in America today, where you have people that are sex trafficked.
Absolutely. And it goes on right here in our own community. Anyone interested in this can give a call over to the Boise Police, Nampa Police, Sheriff Donahue, the sheriff here in Ada County, and talk to them, and they're going to tell you the truth of the matter. So we've been a partner, as a matter of fact, with law enforcement for several years now, a few years now, where we do work with law enforcement when they find victims who need to immediately be housed in a safe, protected environment. We've been able to provide that, have provided that in a few cases, and we continue to look at those opportunities to serve these victims that way. There's some activity in the legislature coming up in the session here where there's going to be more conversation about this. Representative Brent Crane from Nampa is involved in that process, and we encourage him and all of our legislators to look at it and figure out a way that the victims can be decriminalized, if you will, in this process, so that they're willing and able to reach out and speak out with law enforcement and others in the community to get out of that terrible situation and to get the real criminals, those fellows and ladies who are pushing them down this terrible road, into custody and out of business.
Well, again, I'm sure a lot of people are very shocked to hear that goes on here in the Treasure Valley.
Well, we want to think that everything is wonderful, and it's such a beautiful place, and there are so many wonderful people here, it's easy to ignore, and particularly in this case, Kevin, because it's not publicly acknowledged. You can read about it in the paper from time to time or hear it on a news story from time to time. But the truth of the matter is it's a very, very complicated issue. It's a very stealth and secretive kind of operation. In other words, these people aren't looking for publicity, believe me. So they do everything they can to stay undercover. And in fact, if the lady does not come forward and make a case against someone or isn't arrested and then has an opportunity to speak out to law enforcement, then nothing's going to happen because no one's going to be aware.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah, it's under the cover of darkness in the truest sense.
Reverend Bill joining us here. That breaks your heart, doesn't it?
It's a terrible thing. And, the people that I've known, the women that I've known who have been in this terrible situation feel very helpless. Because, if they, first of all, Kevin, let's be clear that in most cases, these ladies have not only been manipulated into sex trade, they're also manipulated through the use of illegal substances. And so many of them have an addiction issue on top of or along with the issue of being forced into prostitution. So if you put yourself in that situation and you have no family or friends or connections, normal, ordinary, responsible people that you can reach out to, it's very, very, very hard to make a move out of there. In many cases, if they try to leave and their controller finds them, there's going to be a severe penalty. It's going to be physical abuse. It could even be death, and they know that. And they're, and now some of these poor kids have kids. They have their own children, and their children are then at risk and held hostage by these people that manipulate them. So it's a really dreadful, awful situation, and it's really hard for these girls to get out of it. So pray for them and pray for law enforcement. Pray for our legislators that we can really finally get a handle on this and do the right thing and get these ladies the help they need.
Indeed. More with Reverend Bill next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And time flies when we're having fun. The final segment on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. KIDO Talk Radio with the Reverend Bill Roscoe. It's been a while since we've had a chance to talk. Usually we're in an RV or
a tent
doing something when we're talking about Miller's mission. But we've talked about the sex trafficking, the homeless issue. What about the opioid epidemic? You're on the front lines of that.
Well, it is.
We live in the Treasure Valley, and everything is happy and sugar and spice and beautiful. Or is it?
Well, you keep bringing up these dark, ugly things, Kevin, that
right.
They're all sleeping under the leaves on the ground out there right now. But yeah, there is an opioid problem here in our community, and we're happy that we can be a part of the solution to that problem. And there again, it's going to be when people are sick and tired of being sick and tired and want to get sober, or encounter law enforcement and get an ultimatum from the court to enlist into a recovery program or face prison time, that we'll see a lot of people come. It's a hard issue because kicking heroin's a hard thing to do. I've known a lot of heroin addicts, and kicking that drug is a very, very tough process. And not only is it tough emotionally and psychologically, it's tough physically. And I've helped a few people to detox from heroin early on in my career, and it's a dreadful, dreadful thing to be a part of, never mind to go through. The physical pain and the misery that you have associated with withdrawal is terrible. So it's a real problem. It's here. It's around us. People can live on heroin and act fairly normal, if you will, for quite a little while. And so chances are that someone who's a high-functioning heroin addict isn't going to be detected by their neighbor until they go out of control or unless they go out of control. But at the same time, it's still destroying their bodies and destroying their lives and controlling them completely.
Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And here we are once again, Reverend Bill, Kevin Miller. Getting back to this epidemic, though, you have the public service announcement saying that we should stop the prescription drugs. We have all these other things going on. What's it like to be on the ground level when somebody comes in as a hopeless dope addict, and you come out a whatever you call it, I can't remember.
A dopeless hope addict.
A dopeless hope addict. But, to see somebody in the most vulnerable position and then to see them blossom.
It's a wonderful thing, Kevin, in both occasions. When someone is sick and tired of being sick and tired and wants help, boy, that makes our day when we meet that person in our recovery program, because that's the person that you can really help, you can work with, and you can develop a relationship with to see them through that process. So seeing people that are desperately needy and wanting out of addiction is a good thing, and we can do that. We can help them. Watching them blossom is the best part of the whole story. I encountered someone today who ran into our assistant manager of our thrift store up in Nampa, whose name is Flora. And Flora was addicted and alcoholic and drug addict for most of her life, and came to the mission when she was almost 50 years old, and wanted help, needed help, a domestic violence victim, the whole 9 yards. And boy, we were able to work with her and help her so that today, 7, 8, 10 years later, whatever it is, she owns her own home in Nampa. She's the assistant manager of our business, and she's a wonderful lady in the community, involved in her church, helps other people all the time. And to see that happen, to have been a part of that process, watching her hold up that GED certificate when she earned it and telling us, this is the first thing I ever started and completed in my whole life. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And that's what happens, and it happens a lot. I mentioned earlier, we have over 500 people a year that come into the rescue mission homeless. Many of them are coming into the mission homeless and addicted to dope, victims of domestic violence and other kinds of abuse. Some have criminal histories and records. And to see those people get their feet on the ground again and get themselves upright and get themselves focused on successful living is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and we see it every day.
And this is where your tax-deductible donations go.
That's right. We don't take any tax dollars, but we do give a tax-deductible receipt for every gift.
And what about your story?
Well, my story is, as you mentioned, Kevin, 40-something years ago now. Let's see, 45 years ago, I guess, I was a hopeless dope addict, and today I'm a dopeless hope addict. And it's because Jesus changed my life, and that's the message of the mission,
Can you repeat that? Because, again, sometimes people skim over that. Jesus changed your life.
Jesus changed my life, and that's what the Bible says will happen when we trust in Jesus as our Savior and give our life over to Him as our Lord. He will change our lives, and I've had my life transformed by the power of God after several attempts at sobriety and a lot of promises made and broken. Finally came to the place where I understood that Jesus loved me and that God didn't send His Son into the world to condemn the world. God sent His Son into the world that the world might be saved. And I got saved, and Christ changed my life, Kevin. I went from that hopeless, belligerent, obnoxious, booze slurping guy to a man who's been responsible for himself and his family and done the best that I can do to live a good, straight life. And at the same time now, he has continued to bless me because he brought me into this wonderful world of rescue mission ministry where I've been for 27 years now. And
27 years.
27 years. I have the opportunity to touch the lives of other people who are as needy as I was. and who need that same message of hope that I needed. To understand that God's not walking around this world with a big 2x4 wanting to smack you on the head for being an alcoholic. God's walking around this world looking to pick you up off that sidewalk and get you back on your feet again and to fill your life with peace and joy. And that's the message we have, and that's the message we share.
Boy, how has the community been receptive to that?
Well, it's been a wonderful time for me and my family here in the Valley, for the rescue mission in this Valley for 60 years. And looking back, Kevin, to our humble beginnings and how people made a commitment back in 1958 that they would give, $30, $40 a month. In 1958, that was a lot of money. But, just a handful of people made that commitment and got this rescue mission started. And then people came and served here and did the best they could and worked real hard and saw the ministry grow and prosper. And here we are today, with all these facilities, serving over 1,000 meals, 500 people a night in our bed, serving children in a big way. We didn't get much into that today, but we have excellent children's programs. Lots of kids every summer, 60 to 90 kids a day coming into our summer camp program and having a great time and learning and prospering.
Well, how do you pay for that?
We pay for that by the generous donations of the people of this community and grants that we're able to secure from non-governmental funders. So folks need to check the website, call us up, come down, have a tour, meet our staff.
Have a tour.
Have a tour of the rescue missions. Take a look at the facilities. See the people who are staying there. Talk to some of the people in our programs and find out that what I'm telling you today is the truth. There is a wonderful, wonderful life change process going on at Boise Rescue Mission right now, and a lot of people are finding that second, third chance in life that they desperately needed. We can't do it without a lot of support, Kevin, and you're right in the front of that. And I got to say thank you again to you and to KIDO for always being alongside the mission, always looking for new ways to help, and getting this job done.
God bless you, Reverend Bill. We appreciate you, and certainly we'll have you back, and thank you, sir. God bless.
God bless you, Kevin, and thanks a million.
All right, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio, your home for Fox News on the radio. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.